Yeah, yeah. I thought my days of work, but I'm kind of going for that. Yes, there, in the actual
Well, we're going to start this the second session of this morning. So welcome to the session. We'll start with the presented front paper by Miguel Carlos and Sousa. Miguel Carlos is a researcher at the Institute of Contemporary History. His work explores agricultural, food, and forestry history between the early modernity and the 20th century at the crossroads between environmental and political histories. He has undergraduate studies in environmental engineering and a master's degree in landscape ecology and focused on ecological patterns of wildfire spread in northern Portugal. He also worked in Mozambique and in the south. He has interdisciplinary research experience in wildfires, wild crops in the Northern Atlantic, and campaign in soil science. And since January 2022, he's principal investigator in the Burning Landscapes project. As far as Ricardo Ventura, he's a research fellow at the Center for Global Studies, Universidade Aberta of Lisbon. He has been developing his research activity through the study and edition of Portuguese and Latin sources from the modern period, mainly related to indigenous movements, indigenous law, and intercultural relations in the context of the Portuguese Empire. And currently, he integrates the research team of the project Pombal Global, focusing on the sources related to Portuguese colonial policies in the second half of the 18th century. And finally, Joana Sousa is a research fellow at the Center of Social Studies at the Universidade. She has carried out ethnographic research on the interface of people in protected areas and social representations of non-humans in Guinea-Bissau. After 2013, she has been working on the circulation of knowledge and technology in mangrove rice farming in West Africa. In 2015, she co-produced a documentary, and she is currently coordinating the project Margins, People, Rights, and Mangroves at the Margins of Hybrid and Contested Interface in the Changing World. And the title of this paper is The Strange Case of White Rights in Young, the plantation in its contribution and the long-term independence.
Morning, everyone. Ricardo will start, and then I will continue. Taking position for this meeting in symposium.
Good morning, so I will start reading. The present paper is part of an ongoing collaborative and multidisciplinary research on the history of rice in the Atlantic. In the previous article, we proposed a reflection on African technological contributions to rice production in Portugal between the 15th and the 18th centuries, in the context of transits of knowledge, speeds, and people in the Atlantic states. Our aim was to assess the applicability of Judith Barney's black rice thesis, developed on South Carolina, to the Tigris and Saddle rivers in the west, in the European and old side of the Atlantic, Portugal. We also wanted to address in this paper the coincidence of rice field and riverside black villages in the lower Saddle recorded at the end of the 19th century. Since then, we've been working on a historical and geographical roadmap of the influence of West African rice society on the Atlantic rice crop, which is currently organized into four main stages. First stage, the well-documented encounter of Portuguese navigators with extensive coastal rice fields in Upper Guinea coast in the 15th century. The subsequent trade in African rice via Cape Verde, and the new rice crops on the Tigris River in the early 16th century. Second stage, the sustained spread of marginal and multi-species rice cultivation in the Caribbean by the forced black diaspora throughout the 16th and 17th century, at the time when Atlantic rice was mainly cultivated by West Africans and Maroons. The third stage refers to the development of rice plantation and commodity in South Carolina in the course of the 18th century, and the incorporation of pockets of cultivation and knowledge held by enslaved farmers. And finally, the fourth stage, which is the transposition of this mode of production to Maranhão in northeast Brazil in the second half of the 18th century. And the second transposition from Maranhão to Portugal around the 18th century in the context of shortage of enslaved workers and the reformulation of rice and labor. This northern transatlantic route draws a slow-moving history that progresses in tandem with the circulation of African rice repertoires. The history of the rice plantation develops on this same chronology as a political and economic project of inter-imperial and Atlantic scope. We are currently devoted to the events in Maranhão in the 1760s and 1770s, which is the focus of this paper. This very brief moment in the history of rice in Brazil articulates and clarifies the broader transition between different Atlantic spaces and dynamics. From Maranhão, we observe the consolidation of the rice plantation, the specific form of its imposition, and the circulation of a model between English and Portuguese colonies that was later projected to Europe. But we also observe, although with greater documented challenges, the dispersion, submersion, and eventual disappearance of different rice realities and their agroecological, social, and even commercial aspects as a result of the development of plantation. Maranhão also allows us to follow these two processes and the particular interactions between them along environmental, political, economic, and also cultural lines. On the 29th of November of 1772, Joaquim de Alcobas, the governor of the Presidency of Maranhão, issued an order prohibiting all farmers, and I quote, of any quality or condition from growing the so-called rice of the land, which means rice of the land can be translated in that manner, imposing instead the cultivation of Carolina rice. So it was an order prohibiting the farming of any other kind of rice than the one that was identified as Carolina rice. According to Bogart, the decree reflected the king's very strict orders to establish rice from Carolina in Maranhão as, and I quote, the most important branch of commerce in the Caribbean Sea. The type of decree, in Portuguese called bando, reflected the social reach of the measure. The order was to be proclaimed at the sound of drums throughout the captaincy as troops patrolled the territory, so that no one could claim ignorance of this order. Offenders would incur heavy penalties, 1 year in prison and a fine of under 1,000 reais for the white colonizers, and for enslaved and indigenous people, heavier penalties were enlisted. 2 years in chains, aggravated by interpolated beatings, called surras, in the case of slavery. After 3 weeks, Joaquim Bogart informed the Secretary of State of Foreign Affairs that this decree had been issued explaining the background to this measure. The company's warehouses, Companhia Geral de Grão-Pará e Maranhão, would still be receiving land rice that was mixed with Carolina rice, distorting, as he said, this beautiful quality of rice, because Land right is very rare and difficult to buy. End of quote. Given this fact, the governor went to the village of Sant Antonio de Alcântara, an ancient Tupinambá settlement, where the richest and largest number of farmers were found to encourage them to apply themselves to Carolina rice. And he said they should do it with the greatest efficiency according to good practice. As Focus himself makes evident in the decree of the 29th of November, the Carolina Rice Project was not reasoned. In a 1786 report, the naturalist Alexander Peyer reports that white rice arrived in Maranhão in 1762. Through a sample of seeds brought from Santiago de Caia de Bracamoros, in present-day Peru. Henceforth, the government of the state of Maranhão would strive to promote this crop in line with the Portuguese colonial policy that saw the increase of agricultural production in Brazil territory as a possible way to reduce cereal imports from North America. The first measure, aiming to ban the cultivation of red rice in Maranhão, would have referred to the 1763 sowing, almost 10 years before the published decree. Through his correspondence with the metropole, we perceive his commitment to the increase of white rice and the suppression of land rice in the period between 1763 and 1772. The process does not seem to have been without difficulties. In 1764, Povos reports the general food shortage in Maranhão, attributing the poor rice harvest to drought. In 1766, in a more optimistic mood, Povos would inform the Secretary of State, the future Marquês Pombal, of the arrival of Maranhão of new seeds of good quality, in his words, sent from Lisbon, but whose original provenance is unknown. Finally, he would also mention the development of rice husking mills. In 1769, however, the news were not encouraging. Maranhão was facing a new food shortage. In another letter that year, Povos reaffirms, and I quote, the greatest hopes that rice will be the largest branch of commerce in the captaincy, because by doing it this year, the experience of going in the fields, we realize that it grows perfectly there. Indeed, in the 1770s, Carolina rice would become one of the most relevant products exported from Maranhão to the Kingdom of Portugal. A status that would be kept until the first decade of the 19th century under the protection of customs mechanisms and growing consumption in the metropole. The events described largely respond to the interests defined by the Companhia do Grão-Pará de Maranhão, formed in 1755 with the aim of establishing the new Atlantic trade triangulation. On the one hand, the export of rice to European markets, and on the other hand, the import of enslaved African workers to Brazil in close articulation with the abolition of indigenous slavery in the colony. More generally, the development of colonial Brazil was a focal point of the Pombalese government, which was early on concerned about the English dominance over the grain trade that supplied the Kingdom of Portugal. The creation of a network of inland settlements, the subjugation of indigenous population, the development of single crop farming and manufacturing to the needs and demands of the European markets, as well as the creation of trading companies to finance this endeavor, are measures that were largely conceived within a logic of emulation of the British Empire.
In early 1750s, there were only a few blacks living in Maranhão, until 1787, the year of the dissolution of the company, more than 20,000 people embarked on the African coasts arrived at Maranhão. In the same year, the census of the population of Maranhão and Piauí estimated nearly 100,000 residents, of whom 58% were registered as blacks as opposed to Indians and whites. The data gathered by Walter also showed that most of the African-born population was shipped to the ports of Cacheu and Bissau on the Upper Guinean coast without interruption until 1850. Despite a clear black majority associated with rice regions in West Africa, as Alter carefully demonstrates, he rejects the application of the black rice thesis to the 18th century Maranhão strategy. On the one hand, the low-skilled growth of labor channeled to the plantations, and on the other hand, the presence of creolized rice regimes originating in Europe, Africa, and Brazil itself. For the North American historian, Maranhão rice is metaphorically brown, neither black nor white, in his words. We find the implication of multiple traditions and the focus on hybridization and change very relevant, but it seems difficult to escape the centrality of the white rice plantation built upon success in South Carolina and the planned conscriptions of black workers from the largest rice production center in the world. On the 5th page, Author describes the African origin of techniques, tools, and even the gender division in place, but does not acknowledge the same agency with regard to cultivation. Black skills, white rice, or even more appropriately, black skills, white rice are, in our opinion, better historical overviews of the new rice of Maranhão than the metaphor of brown rice, which suggests a mistaken equivalence about the plantation development process. From the decree of 1772 by Portuguese, we got a first look at the background of white rice. As mentioned before, the letter accompanying the decree sent to Lisbon explains that the rights of the land being rare and difficult to us reduce the quality of Carolina rice when mixed with it. Portuguese ends the letter wishing that the so-called Rosatec be banished once for all. The text of the decree is somewhat more detailed. The danger of the land rights does not lie in its cultivation, but in its mixed delivery to the company's warehouses. Furthermore, the decree clarifies that the prohibition applies to land rights and any other rights that is not Carolina. It was the quote. For the abundance carried out, the latent formulation is repeated twice more in the text. The Portuguese letter and bundle say little about those other rice crops grown in Maranhão, but make it very clear that they are contrary to the interests of the colonial administration. Going back to the 1750s, through the correspondence of Francisco Mendonça Furtado, governor of Hidropará in Maranhão, we accept a much less pluralized rice context. Furtado is fond of rice, requesting it several times to Lisbon for the supply of his expeditions in the interior. In 1752, he made an extensive survey of plants with commercial interests, both native and imported, which he sent to the Secretary of State for Overseas rice figures there prominently among the 39 described. Furtado aims above all to, quoting, reduce to culture and plantation an immensity of herbs and trees that are harvested in the matos and sertões, the scrubby and wild interval. For each crop, estimates the expected work and agroecological viability. Without Having mentioned the color of or type of rice informs that it grows excellently in the marshy lands of Maranhão and produces 2 or 3 harvests a year, thus being of great use for the large consumption of rice in Portugal. Of the rice that were tried there in Maranhão, the one they call Veneza, in his words, Venice, is the most productive and the easiest to well. Later, in 1757, the governor compares the rice harvested in Maranhão with the Venice and Carolina rice imported from Lisbon, finding it in no way inferior. The set of discourse in rice produced throughout the second half of the 18th century shows that white and red rices and the divergence between them are late concepts. During the 1750s, we could not find any reference to the color of the rice grain, nor to the arroz de terra, land rice label. In the 1772 degree, there is no reference to the color of the rice either. The decree's focus is on Carolina rice and land rice. However, Governor Povo's letter mentions the red color of the land rice grains. The opposition between white and red will appear in the philosophical travels of Alexandre Ferreira in the 1780s through the Formation Report and also a short historical review by philosopher Chermont entitled Account on the Introduction of White Rice in the State of Grão-Pará, in which Chermont celebrates the new white rice and is subject as planter and industrial effort. The land rice and red rice are not specific cultivars or existing forms of cultivation, but rather simplified instrumental representations of rice growing contexts excluded by the project of community rice. As Ferreira explained before, before the introduction of white rice, there was already red rice instead. It grew spontaneously in the floodplains and marshlands, and those who did not buy the white rice that came from Portugal ate what they planted. That's why the Marquis Pombal recommended that even if the rice was red, it should be grown on a large scale as it would serve to sustain poor people. The inaccuracies and generalizations of the naturalista Ferreira in this passage seem to confirm the emergence of social and political meanings attached to the color of rice that go beyond the physiological and agricultural description of the grain. Indeed, the importance that the white rice seems to attain in the 1780s suggest the development of a racialized commodity fueled by the widespread use of slave labor in Maranhão, as the mentioned 1787 census reveals, as well as by Portuguese racial policies instituted from the 1750s onwards. In the context of colonial plantation slavery and the enlightened claim of European superiority, the concept of white rice brings together mercantile, agro-industrial, and also civilizational features. The 1755 Directory, which abolished the enslavement of Indians in Brazil, paradoxically and brutally clarifies the far-reaching effects of racial naming and color labeling by forbidding anyone to call the Indians Negroes, perhaps wishing by the infamy and vileness of this name to persuade them that nature has signed them to be slaves of whites. The aim of these new rules was to enable and train indigenous peoples as if, and I will quote again, as if they were white people. To conclude, the hegemonic imposition of the community, Carolina rice or white rice implied, In different parts of the Atlantic, not only the attempt to suppress other cultivars or existing forms of cultivation, but also the concealment of knowledge and labor from West Africa. In the last 2 decades of the 18th century, the success of the Maranhão plantation had repercussions in the Rio de Janeiro at the time when the husband and whitening industry was gaining importance, and notably in Portugal, where rice farming was finally grown on the basis of the Maranhão experience. In short, the Portuguese arroz Carolino rice, much present in Portuguese cuisine, was a tentative copy of the Carolina rice from northeast Brazil, which in turn was a tentative copy of the Carolina white from southeast North America. The Portuguese metropole is therefore, to some extent, the beginning and the end of this long journey of circulation and transformation of rice in the modern Atlantic, starting the maritime traffic of rice seeds and enslaved rice farmers from Argan, Santiago, in Cacheu, and receiving 300 years later a new rice transmuted into plantation.
Thank you, Ricardo, for the fascinating presentation. Well, at the time when Cabal was really trying to reinforce the economic integration between the colony and the metropolis, and then the company tried to do this by promoting growth and this the circulation of funds, particularly fascinating. Well, we now move to our next speaker. Who here the paper from Ministry combined Ministry is American Studies at King's College. He's presently vice dean of faculty social and social science and public policy. He's specializing in Brazilian studies, and his research and publications cover a diverse range of areas, including literature, relations, international relations, and defense and security. And it is a paper titled The Long-Term Impacts of Mining in Minas Gerais.
Thank you very much. I hope that you can hear me well there. Sorry? Can you hear me well there? Let me know if you are not hearing or can you hear now? No. What about now? Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
I think, can you leave the meeting command?
Can you hear me now or not? What about now? Can you hear me?
Can you hear us? Oh, perhaps use the chat.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now? I can try to get a microphone if that would help. Okay, give me a second. I will try to get a microphone to make that work. Can you hear me now? What about now? Nothing? Just a second, I will get a microphone. Does it make any difference? Hear or not? Can you hear something or not?
Perhaps you can watch these settings through, so if you all open participants below. Yeah, so if you open these settings forcefully, can you override them, basically? So
Make them course.
make him co-host and see what happens. Well, yeah, you can see.
What about now? Can you hear?
Connect them. To leave the room to connect them.
Yes.
Can you hear me now? Consegue me ouvir agora? Can you hear me now? No. Nothing.
Yes, there is.
I'm just saying that several options for, come up, I don't know,
Yeah,
try all of them. Try talking now.
Can you hear me now or not? Anything? Well,
Try now.
anything or not?
Try now.
No.
Maybe you should try the same in the exit sound. Should be.
the one.
Maybe you should try the same thing that you are doing in the compound. Try using computer.
I think he can't do that, like, there's only one mic in his computer.
But you can do it in two ways, through the camera.
What about now?
Over the computer.
Try
What about
checking
now?
your audio, settings. See-
What about now? I am checking that. I am. Nothing there. Hello? Hello?
No, it's not.
No.
Okay, so now, how to get back to the issue, we'll come in minutes later. So now, discussion beyond video and the regard to mobility. Some of the questions.
Can you hear anything or not?
Thank you. Thanks for your paper and your much the approach to this video. I'd like to just to ask you if you could add to that about the environmental impact of that kind of cooperation. And because the rights cooperation has a lot of impacts, namely on the public health. Do you have some information about it?
Thank you. I would like to go back to categories that you use about rights, also about labor. And I was wondering whether we can have a critical reflection about what it means to associate categories of people translating into labor and categories of rights. Because there are two certainties that we have. There are different types of rights, and there's different types of regime labor we choose to explore in this rights. Where do these two worlds meet, and how actually does the Brazilian case raise quite deep questions, very serious questions, to the Black rights theory. A lot of racial theorization has been developed about the Latin, and what I find always surprising is how the Brazilian case never fits any of these typologies of theory, mostly generated in the United States. So why is this? And because you're talking about Maranhão has, of course, a huge history beginning in the 17th century of Native Americans and Africans fighting for a very specific type of social engagement, where indigenous people have Black African slaves, Black African people, all indigenous enslaved, even that we look at some point. So I wonder how these very historical relationships in Maranhão actually frame the complexity that you're looking at, that in itself questions pretty much the typology of racialization and commodities that you mentioned as a theoretical framework. For the hackers.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear anything?
Actually, take this presentation and send it to the computer. That's what we suggested in the chat. I can share later my presentation. It's work on for so you can access that on slide.
Can you hear me now or not? No.
So my goal is, well, I'm expecting the example of so my question about technology was something if I understood the sub-right, the right from the second point. And that rise, I think you understand well, was the rise from the software one. Is that correct? So that is the first question.
The second question is, so they imported the seeds then from Carolina. That's the region. Or where did they come from? So it's a very basic. It's not very basic. We still the word of complex story. Third, your reconstitution, so you reject the theory of brown rice. You consider it was the Roman argument about it. And also you established that the rice was adapted to Maranhão and then brought back to Portugal. I suppose the valley of South. So the issue is, well, my question is also, well, we know that there is a development and Isabel Catholic is also worked on the valley of South, and you work also on that. So my question is, wasn't there any rice in Portugal before this went to the 18th century? Because we have the diffusion of rice in Southern Europe much earlier. So that's the last question.
Very quickly, just to, because really that's the question, one of our good. Because I was also, it's certainly my fault, I was also a bit confused as to what was exactly moral argument. Because I read Carney's book many years ago, if you could, in answering Francisco, summarize very quickly your argument in relation to what Carney is telling in Norway.
Thank you. A very brief question, which is about not to do with the racialization of prices, but the nutritional value of the original relics. If that was able to sustain was there a kind of class hierarchy that was imposed, Carolina rice was for the better class, red rice was for poor. It was clearly nutritionally okay. I imagine it's close to wild rice in one of its forms. I find it fascinating the imposition of a certain product, reason that a very wide range of political, economic, social. Whether it is stand up, I don't know, I'm not able to judge, but I have to think more about the erosion there.
Concerning the impacts, the environmental impacts of white rice. We don't know much about the environmental impact of specifically of white rice. We know that the imposition of white rice brought a lot of investment to the farming and industrialization process of the rice in Brazil, and also it increased the area of planting of rice planting in Brazil very considerably. So, and also we still don't have much data on it, but we know that part of the work enslaved people did was had to do with transforming the hill in order to prepare it for rice seeding, and it's demanded a lot of land transporting, which was a very heavy task to do, and it certainly changed the landscape in this area.
We are not sure, but there is a possible change from rainfed rice in Atlantis to when this rice during these decades. But we are researching more to find, because if that is the case, it will be important to understand the solutions.
Yes, it had to do with the change of, because Paul Bush said in his letter, in which he informs the minister about the decree, he said that he went to Alcântara in the north of Maranhão to visit, to inform the farmers, the breaches and more numerous farmers that were in that area. And then later, on the 80s, we know that most of the rice farming is developed in the south area, which is brought by streams and rivers, and has better conditions for rice farming. And that change of the area for rice farming had to do with also with the development of rice in the waterlands. We also know that in the end of the 18th century, and also Alexandre Dias started talking about the problem of the disease that were generated from rice farming.
Regarding Peru and the origin of the seeds, what we know is that they are looking for seeds that could produce a rice, a kind of rice that is similar to Carolina rice. Maybe sometimes that seed came from South Carolina, but it's not clear the documentation. And then we have this Peru sorted in the Pacific, and Lisbon also as a. So we think that it's not the cultivar, the specific variety that is being produced in Carolina, that is the focus of the Maranhão farmers. Is a kind of rice with some features, white, some style, some resistance to washing machine, also to arrive to the markets in a good shape. And it's indeed it's a community rice community that is being built independent of the specific one variety. And it's the same today with Carolina rice in Portugal. There is not a Carolina rice, there is a brand, and that set of features, characteristics that permit to say that is Carolina and this is another thing. Not it's not a biological or agricultural continuity. There is not, I would say.
And also concerning Katya's questions about types of people, types of rice. In fact, what we were trying to say is not exactly that the colors of rice would correspond to the colors of people, or they made, or that always or the government did that or promoted that kind of correspondence. What we were trying to say, I think it can be using in terms of different colors correspond to different types of modes of production. We know that, and also answering to Francis, what we were trying to say is that while all in the first text from Paul and from Francis in the beginning of the second half of the 18th century, they were talking about red rice like something that was the spread of all the rices that were existed in Brazil before the imposing the white rice. So it was not only the rice of Venice, or what was called the rice of Venice, the rice imported from Italy, and it was being sold in Lisbon, and then it's sent to Brazil, and consumed mainly by the elites before they were. Not only that rice from Italy, but also indigenous wild rice. Many different kinds, which were not exactly cultivated, but also cultivated, but were harvested.
And new rices from the Indian Ocean.
Yes, also rice from Indian Ocean, and also rices from the rice from Africa.
I think on that. One of these, I think that if you speak of different typologies of rice, different means different typologies of rice, different means and different production. The third point, these are different level regimes. This is the whole point of this theory of the backgrounds in the Atlantic. It's not only because different types of rice and different ecologies of production of rice translated into different level regimes that historians, anthropologists, sociologists have just pasted into different level regimes, into different racialization of the labor systems. Right? This is not an innocent theoretical framework. And then you can say to us in Brazil, that's not the case. For instance, you have a systematic label regime for all types of rice, which does not make sense. You have wild rice and all types of other rices because they are dealt differently. But if you have a different typology of labor regime for that system of production, what does that say in regime categorizations? Because that's the whole point where it started.
Yes.
I don't insist on the because I just know where you guys stand.
Yes, but just trying to continue to explain our argument. So what we were trying to say is that there is a process that goes on for around 40 years, in which the first governor, the first governor of the is always only searching for rights that is comparable to rights that is eaten in Lisbon and Europe in general, and he compares with many different types of rights he finds in the Rio Negro, in Maranhão, Pará. And he says, okay, this rice is comparable to Venice and Carolina. It's white, eatable, so maybe we can promote it. It's just comparing many other kinds of rice. Then, 1 decade after, Portuguese tries to impose seeds that are branded like Carolina rice because they resist better to the husking process. They are longer, they become whiter after husking. And then he received orders from Lisbon to impose that kind of rice that resists husking and is whiter. And he imposed it, and he said, we are imposing this rice from Carolina. He doesn't call it white rice. This rice from Carolina, and he also doesn't talk about Venice. This rice from Carolina because all other kinds of rices that are arriving to our warehouses are just damaging the purity of
The price.
the price of the commodity. So, and after more 10 decades after, this process engages many investors from abroad and from the Brazilian elite. Some in Pará, Constantine Chevron was not only someone who was writing about rice, but he was a husking machine inventor. He writes about rice, and he was an investor and a farmer, a big farmer in Pará. Also, the Belford, Lancelot or Lawrence Belford, he also developed machines for husking. He developed this big farm in Itapecuru in the south of Maranhão, and he also writes on his business about rice. And also in Rio de Janeiro, later, Jerónimo Vieira da Abreu, this big rice producer. And all these people have in common that they write about rice, they invent machines, and also all they talk about is husband, and they are centered in the industrial process of husband. And in that case, they invent or impose the white rice like a commodity. And what we were trying to say is that this period, this imposition of the white rice, as is related to the process of industrialization in Brazil, and also the process of importing or bringing lots more bigger quantities of enslaved people to Brazil. This was only possible through a big investment to buy slaves to bring these people to Brazil. So what we were saying is that there is a correspondence between the idea of a white price that would be production directed to the European markets. That was described by these people, this industrial, as a commodity that was more efficient, more productive, that could be sold for a higher price in Europe, and the subjugation of all these other modes of production and types of products that were existing in Brazil before.
So just to clarify, because I understand that where you stand and I understand that where you come from. So there is still two issues. Well, the first, seeds for West Africa are not there listed, if I understand well. Second, going back to labor. So, was it because some of the choosing of coverage, exactly the importance of African skills, the importance to develop in the last section in the British colonies or the Southwest, Southeast. So, how do you introduce labor in your
So we're talking about farming and farms. As far as I understand, we are talking about the merchants of the plantation system that is associated with this farm. So this is the point in this type of the other, as you mentioned, the other ones of production being then practiced by white people or indigenous people or African people are not plantations. We are talking about a plantation house, is it?
Yeah. Permission.
Is there any other question? Okay, so.
Is was similar to what you were trying to understand. And it's how do we relate to current proposal? What we think is currently she says that the white representation in South Carolina began with important knowledge and technology from West Africa in the beginning, and then commodity and the plantation system and a lot of innovations developed on this from the beginning of the 18th century, the transition, the first 2 decades of the 18th century. And this is what the first global rise prevalent to the European markets. What arrived at Maranhão is this model we see. But against what the author says, we think this what arrived is a white box model, more or less completed, but the work and the skills keep are based in West African labor and skills. Auburn says that in the first stage of Maranhão rice, the asking stage is done by women with the same techniques of West African asking stage. But it then says that the cultivation process is industrial one, it's a plantation, and the West African people working there are putting their labor and not their skills. We are not sure, we don't have reasons to accept this transition from the asking stage to the cultivation. I think autumn is too much focused to correct some mistaken ideas from Kearney, black rice extended thesis from Maranhão, but we are proposing that this is a white rice plantation. It's a plantation system based in black labor with skills from a long tradition in West Africa that is still, we think, is still arriving to Maranhão.
So, and also concerning Francisco was asking if there wasn't any rice before the century in Portugal. Actually, in the article we talked about, we published, we explained a bit more about this history, but what we were trying to say is that, and we were trying to also say in this article, is that there was a rice tradition that was brought from the second half of the 15th century, and that was somehow existing in Portugal, and it was we were trying to reconstitute some of its features in this article we wrote before. What we were trying to say is that there was a rice tradition in Portugal that it shows in some documents, some text on India or in Portuguese early modern period. In the 16th century, in theater, in literature, and many other documents. But what we were trying to say is that in the 18th century, another kind of rice goes back to Portugal. And because we have from some research we did, we were able to establish some connection between the industrial work in the second half of the 18th century in Brazil and in South in the 19th century. And also concerning the imports of machines from England, by the time the machines were already steam with the steam engine. So we are sure, and we have documented proofs that there were connections, technological connections, and that the rice field was brought back in this industrial process with many experiences and learnings from the first industrialization in Brazil, not only in and also concerning the nutrition value of red rice. Actually, the red rice or rice with land. Actually, although there was this prohibition of right, any other kind of rice in heavily in the rice for more than 100 years. In fact, there is still a kind of red rice in Maranhão and in other parts of Brazil, in Paraíba and also in Minas Gerais. There are many kinds. And the red rice, more recently in this centuries, actually, a very valued staple. And it is promoted by rice industry or rice distributors now in Brazil as a kind of rice that has some nutrition value. But I think it has to do with iron and some rare kinds of vitamins, some rare vitamins. It is promoted as a product that was has a tradition, a continued tradition in familiar and communal agriculture production, not so as a microbiota, the kind of product and not an industrial product. But of course, we think it's not very precise, or it's not in a historical way. This kind of rice can be immediately compared to the red rice we were talking about. But in fact, there is this red rice, or so-called red rice in Maranhão nowadays.
So thank you both for the presentation and also the audience.